Hi everyone, Sandra here from the Schwoven's Nest. Today I want to take you through an exciting project that has been waiting for a really long time to get completed, and that is the makeover transformation of my dining room table. This photo is a partial before. The legs I had already painted, but this is the original top. I just got so excited to be able to start this project that I completely forgot to take a proper before picture. Let me start with the products that I used. I'm going to be using rustoleum chalked chiffon cream paint for the apron of the table and for all four legs. So as I get started, I'm just using a regular brush and I'm going to go ahead and do one full coat of this all the way around, let it dry completely, and then come back with another coat. If you've been watching my videos, I use chalk paint a lot, and I like this chiffon cream color because it's a white, but it's not pure white. And sometimes I just find that the white is too bright, so that's why I decided to use the cream. This is comparable to Annie Sloan's old white color. Now I'm sure a lot of you know how to paint and use a paintbrush, so I'm going to go ahead and speed up this part of it so you don't have to spend a whole lot of time watching me paint. Okay, here is one coat of the chiffon cream chalk paint on the table legs and on the apron. You can see that I didn't really take too much care in painting the underside of the table. Nobody's going to see that, so I don't really care. I just went ahead and painted without using any tape. Once it was dry, I went ahead and did a second coat. Now that I'm done the second coat, I'm going to let that completely dry, and then I'm going to flip the table over and start working on the top. I'm also not going to be putting on any top coat or protective coating on the legs and the apron. If things start to wear off, that's okay. I like a rustic look. Okay, so I've got my table flipped over, and I'm just taking a sanding block that I picked up at Dollarama, and I'm using the fine grit side. I think it's 125 grit, and I'm just roughing up the shine on the top of the table. This is a laminate veneer on top, so it's not an actual piece of good wood, so I'm not going to sand it down too far. I do want the grain on the laminate to show through. So now that the sanding is finished, I'm taking a damp cloth and wiping off all the dust and the residue, and then I'll let it dry completely. Now it's time to start applying the stain to the tabletop. This made me a little nervous because, like I said, it was a big project. I've never done this before, and I've never refinished a table. So I decided to use the Minwax gel stain in the color walnut. I'm using plastic gloves because I am a total mess maker when it comes to painting. And then I've got two nice rags plus an apron so I don't get schmutzed, but I ended up getting some stain on my pants anyway. So the rags are one for applying the stain, and then the other rag is just there as a backup. What I've done now is dipped the rag into the stain, and then I'm just wiping it on, and then it also says to wipe it off, but what happened with me is I ended up going over the stain a couple of times, so I basically wiped it on and then wiped it off a little bit right away. I probably should have waited a couple of minutes to wipe it off, but I didn't want it to be streaky and thicker in some spots and darker in some spots. So I just kind of used that same rag and just went over and over it, and it seemed to work out good. first coat done, time for the second coat. And it's really hard to see, but I'm sorry this was a little bit out of frame, but you can sort of see the darkness of the stain as I'm putting on the second coat. And when I lean in here, you can really see the difference in the colors. So it is getting to be a nice, dark, rich color. I waited about an hour in between coats just so it wasn't too tacky and that I wouldn't rub off the existing stain by putting new stuff on. This is what the table looks like in the sun and outside of the sun with 3 coats of the walnut Minwax gel stain. I'm really happy with the color. You can still see some of the wood grain coming through. Now for the tricky part. I'm using some 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm using the same sanding block and just folding the sandpaper over so I have a nice little grip on it, and doing a very, very light coat of sanding just to get some of the tackiness off, so this will have a better adhesion for the clear coat that I'm going to be putting on. Sanding is an important step before you put on the clear coat. You want to make sure also that you use a light touch and you go in the direction of the wood grain. I was going through, I was just using a rag just to wipe off the dust to make less of a mess. But now I'm using just a dampened rag, and I'm just going to wipe off the rest of the residue of the dust and make sure that there isn't any particles sitting on there for when I do the top coat. If there are any particles on there, your top coat's going to turn out bumpy and it won't be smooth. The product I chose to use for my top coat is Varathane Triple Thick 1 Coat Clear Finish. 1 coat is as thick as 3 coats, and you can see that the varnish itself is almost glue or paint-like. It's really thick. It reminded me of cooked sugar or like caramel sauce, just in a lighter color. So I just had to go ahead and put all of that on. I'm using even brush strokes as much as I can. If you go over this Varathane too often, you get streaks and bubbles. I did realize at the end that I was putting it on a little too thick, but it was really hard to not put it on thick because of the texture of it.
This is the completed table. It looks beautiful to my eye anyway. It's my first project doing stain and Varathane on a really big project. I've done them on small projects, but I really love the way this turned out with the satin finish. You do see some brush marks. It's my first time working with the triple thick Varathane, so you do see a few brush marks in there, but you know what? I'm happy with it. I don't care. I think it looks great. It turned out exactly the way I wanted it, and it's my grandmother's table, and I just hate to part with it. It just reminds me of her, and I loved her to death. She's been gone 20 years now, so I just wanted to keep the table and just give it a new life. So here's a view of the table with all of my chairs around it. The chairs are going to get slip covered at some point. That's going to be my next big project. I want them to be a little lighter. The brown it's time for a change. So I just think something a little lighter is going to look better with my farmhouse theme in the kitchen. Please let me know what you think of my table and if you think it was worth the effort. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and make sure you click the bell to get notified when I upload new videos. Thanks for watching.